Hey, what is up, guys? Long time no talk. This is the Leafs Combo podcast for Oak Ridge Ford in London, Ontario. OakRidgeFord.com. It is Sunday, November 8th, 2020. I'm Norm, along with Mike. Post-U.S. election, we'll leave it at that. Plus, we are in the aftermath of the awesomeness of all of those transactions, many involving the Maple Leafs. We are headed into days where analysis is the thing. Michael, good morning.
Good morning, Norm. It's today, I believe, is the 1 month anniversary since the free agent frenzy on October 9th. It's 30 days. Kyle Dubas did accomplish a lot in those 30 days, but now we'll have to wait until, January or February to see the results.
The Leafs, like their NHL counterparts, have settled into roster changes. Now it's about making sure that everybody is rested and feeling well and prepared as best as they possibly can for the next phase of the NHL coming to terms with this new COVID era. We're all excited, hot and bothered, revved up by everything that's gone on over the past month. When can we anticipate that the fruits of all of Kyle Dubas's labor over the last several weeks will actually come together, hit the ice, and get things going in terms of preparing for a season?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty, and I know that it's something where players will gear up their off the ice workouts based on the schedule. Training camp starting in September and the schedule starting around October 1st. Right now, we don't know when the season's going to start. We don't know whether there's going to be a Canadian division or just the normal divisions. We don't know how long the season will be. The NHL is saying 82 games, but that's pretty much not going to happen if they start on January 1st. So there's a lot of uncertainty, and I think there's also a lot of uncertainty with what teams have done and what how they're constructed and how they'll adjust to a shorter season. And if you think about it, the Leafs adding more veteran players, it might be beneficial to them to have a 56 or 65 game schedule with guys like Joe Thornton and Jason Spezza on the roster than it would be the slog of an 82 game schedule.
The NBA is prepared to embark on a new season. It just seems like yesterday when the Lakers were crowned champions. There are reports out there, Mike, that Nashville could be a temporary home for the Raptors, so there isn't any cross-border travel. And that's the thing. There's one NBA team, you can situate them into the United States, they can play a season. The Blue Jays played in Buffalo. But when it comes to the NHL, you have 7 NHL teams north of the border. You really have to split it up unevenly. What we are hoping and dreaming for as hockey fans, at least right now, Mike, is it's more theoretical than it is practical and realistic.
Well, there are a couple complicating factors. I mean, the first of which, you've got 3 Canadian-based teams that have American AHL affiliates. Calgary, Edmonton, and Vancouver. I believe it's Bakersfield, Utica, and I can't remember where Calgary is, but they're in California. So the problem there is, okay, you can't wait 14 days if there's a quarantine to call up players. So they're going to have to uproot those franchises for a year if they're in a Canadian division and there's no freedom across the border. That's definitely going to be it's an advantage to Ottawa, Toronto, Montreal, and Winnipeg that they're all either based in their cities or fairly close. The other thing is the situation where the Players Association is not going to agree to bubbles. They did it last year because it was a circumstance that they were unsure of what was going on, and the league needed to get the playoffs completed, and they sacrificed. But there were some players who were not happy with the bubble situation and being in a bubble for 2 months, even if it's like mobile bubbles, like they play a series of games in one place for a couple weeks, and then it's not going to work. It's probably going to be something similar to Major League Baseball, where they sort of sequester in place and they go to different cities. That's probably the way it's going to work. But everything is on the table right now, and again, this is the uncertainty of what's going to happen a couple months from now.
This is the Leafs Combo podcast for Oak Ridge Ford in London, Ontario. OakRidgeFord.com, 0% on most new models. Continues on. The 2021 Ford F-150 Lariat is about to arrive on the ground in London at Oak Ridge Ford. Get at me on Twitter at I am Norman James for more information. You can also reach me through the community function on the YouTube channel. We're doubling back a little bit, but the Leafs have signed Joey Anderson and Michael Hutchinson.
Well, the Joey Anderson signing was particularly good because it was a 3-year deal, AAV of $750,000, which right now is a $50,000 over the league minimum. But in a couple of years, I think that's going to be the league minimum. And this is a player who could be a third, fourth line guy. He's 22 years old. He's got the tools to be an NHLer, and he's played some games with New Jersey. He could be the guy who is sort of the guy who goes between the Marlies and the Leafs based on when they need to send somebody down to clear cap space because he is waiver exempt in year one of the 3-year deal. But I think he's going to be an NHLer, if not this year, then next year. And then they have him at $750K, which is a good salary. And I think he's somebody who can be successful. He's not going to be a top 6 guy, but he's going to be a depth guy, and he's a workman-like type player. So I think this is a good move to get him on a significant term. The Hutchinson deal, people were scratching their heads, but it made all the sense in the world to me because they have to have a goaltender who they can expose for the expansion draft. It has to be somebody who is under contract, and the 5 other goalies in the organization, Aaron Dell and Frederik Andersen, are UFA at the end of the year. Jack Campbell would be the goalie they protect because he's got a year left in his contract, and Joseph Woll and Ian Scott are exempt. So they needed a goaltender to expose, and that is Hutchinson. So now, they don't have to expose Jack Campbell, and they don't want to because I think Campbell will be the backup this year. But this you see other teams doing this with guys like Dustin Tokarski and other veteran backup goaltenders. That teams are basically signing them to 2-year deals so they have somebody to expose to Seattle.
From a business perspective, Michael Hutchinson's a pawn, but he's also a player. And I know you've been focused recently on the individuals who make up the Maple Leafs, in particular the goalie triumvirate. Does he fit into that puzzle at all?
Well, in terms of a developmental model, I mean, we don't know what, again, we expect the AHL to play starting in February. That's what the league indicated. More than likely, after being out for a year after hip surgery, you would project Ian Scott probably to play most of the games down with Newfoundland in the ECHL, while Joseph Woll, who played over 30 games with the Marlies, will probably factor in with them. The Leafs are not going to carry 3 goaltenders on their roster, so you're more than likely going to have him split duty. We'll have Woll split duty with Aaron Dell and with Hutchinson. So, and we know that the AHL is a compacted schedule, so I would think that Woll would get the most work, but the other goaltenders would have to get occasional work to stay sharp. And obviously Dell and Hutchinson are there for quality depth because, we've seen over the last few years that the backups like Hutchinson, like Garrett Sparks, when the Leafs had to call on them, they weren't good enough. But they have to have somebody with NHL experience that's there in case somebody gets injured. So they're more well set up in terms of organizational depth in goal than they have, I would say, probably in the last 10 years.
Remember when we were talking about Frederik Andersen possibly being replaced?
We did, but then the goaltending market cleared up. I mean, we don't know who specifically Kyle Dubas thought was going to be the upgrade because he wasn't going to make a lateral move. He was saying, if we see a way of improving in goal, we will go in that direction. Was it Matt Murray, who was traded before, they really had a chance, before free agency went into effect, and then he was signed to a 4-year contract by Ottawa? Was it Robin Lehner, who agreed to an extension? We don't know. We don't know who they thought in this market was an upgrade. But once those two guys came off the market, the Holtbys and the Corey Crawfords and Markstrom, it's probable that they didn't think those guys were upgrades over Anderson, so that's why they decided to stick with Anderson for another year.
Yeah, I think Freddie Anderson has another gear, and I didn't feel like any of the names bandied about would be an upgrade on his talent, potentially contractually a better fit. But to me, the idea was change for the sake of change when really Freddie Anderson wasn't the problem. It's everything else that was in front of him that needed to be reconfigured, and it has been. So with this new crew supporting him, let's see what Freddie Anderson can do. And I think though he's worth the money that he's being paid, and yeah, he's going to be in line for a rather large financial upgrade. But if he's indeed to collect, that would mean that he's had success. And if he has success, you have to believe the Maple Leafs are going to have success whenever they begin playing, Mike. I don't know if you're breathing a sigh of relief today, Mr. Augello, or you still feel that tension. The United States has been a powder keg for quite some time. One of the good things about the Leafs combo is we can kind of forget about politics, forget about pandemics, and just get down to the brass tacks of the game we love, that is hockey. You are doing analysis on Leafs players individually, but you're also putting together so much more literature at hockeybuzz.com. Fill us in, Mike, and you can take it away.
I just discussed the goaltending, but I've been doing an analysis on each position going into the season based on, more than likely the Leafs have made all the moves that they're going to make. And on defense, obviously, it seems that the top four is sort of locked in place with any combination of Morgan Rielly, Jake Muzzin on the left side, with TJ Brody and Justin Hall on the right side. The real question is going to be that bottom pairing. And we know Zach Bogosian played well for Tampa in their run to the Stanley Cup, but we don't know who the real Zach Bogosian is, because the Zach Bogosian in Buffalo couldn't stay healthy, and when he was healthy, his play was sort of wanting. But maybe he's turned the page. I think he's going to be sort of a part-time player along with Mikko Lehtinen, the KHL addition that they made, and Travis Dermott, which likely would relegate Rasmus Sandin to the Marlies, at least for a year, which isn't a bad thing because, he's 19 or he's 20 years old, excuse me. And, another year in the AHL doesn't hurt him. But you look at the other positions, and I'm not going to go through them, but you look at the other positions and there's always these little permutations of where guys slot in and, how long they're locked up for. And on the left side, on the right side, we have a number of those players. This team has 9 unrestricted free agents. So, there's going to be a change probably on a yearly basis because they have that core group that makes over $40 million. You're going to see people shoveling in and shuffling out year by year.
I want you to make it a prediction. The Leafs and their first game opponent will have the puck dropped on their contest when?
I'm going to say January 1st. I think there's motivation there. It's funny because we heard one thing from Greg Wyshynski and Emily Kaplan of ESPN regarding the league wanting to start January 1 and being motivated to do that because of advertising agreements and things of that nature that the league makes money on. But then we had Kevin Allen on our Hockey Buzzcast on Friday, and he said, well, the league only gets about $6 million per team from the U.S. television contract. So really the motivation here is to start the season when players can be playing in front of fans. And that's the most important thing. I don't know when that's going to be the case because different municipalities in the United States, you can play in front of fans in Florida, but you can't play in front of fans in New York. And right now in Canada, I'm not sure whether the QMJHL who's playing right now, whether they're playing in front of fans or not. But right now there are a lot of restrictions because of, the rampant spread of COVID, and we don't know where things are going to be in a couple months. So everything is going to depend on.
It's also complex, but we keep our fingers crossed that in the end, we will find a way collectively in community on the YouTube channel. OGs, converts, guys, girls, have your say based around what Mike and I just had to say. Everyone has an opinion on COVID and how the NHL will wade through the controversial waters ahead. What do you have to say? Keep it clean, keep it direct. Let's keep it focused. Let's take the spam out of it. For the most part, we do real well in that regard. We're 50 some odd subscribers away from 3,000. Smash that subscribe button. If you're coming back week in and week out, Mike and I are saying the things that you don't always want to hear, but for the most part, you can agree with us and you respect what we're doing. We could certainly use that subscription from you. So hit the subscribe button. You can get at Mike in Buffalo on Twitter, at I am Norman James on Twitter, at the Leafs Combo 2 on Twitter. We are out there and we are committed to plenty of content in the days, weeks, and months ahead. For Mike, I'm Norm. The Leafs Combo is out.